Hello, this is Russell from
Tones of Evil.
and you're listening to Capes and Lunatics.
Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to tell you all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Don't miss out on our comic book creator interviews, including our monthly Chichester chats with comic book legend DG Chichester, superhero movie brackets in our search for the worst comic book movie of all time, and many, many more specials, all completely uncensored. Access starts for $3 a month, full video when you pledge $5 a month. Check out the link in our show notes or go to patreon.com/capesandlunatics. Hope to see you there.
This is Luca Perich, host of a Totally Turtle sports and gaming YouTube channel, and you're listening to the Capes and Lunatics Podcast Network.
Recording has started. In a world of capes and lunatics, of gods and monsters, there are those threats so great no single hero can defeat them. In those moments must rise a team of Avengers. And this is Avengers Declassified. I am your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser. And with me tonight is the blue-eyed bomber of the Burger Pits,
Phil Podcast Perich.
Welcome, podcast. Your wisdom, your candor, your joy, it is what fuels all around you. Tonight we are discussing three central issues in the Iron Man history. Iron Man issue 315 through 317.
Yes.
These are some rough issues. I'm going to be honest with you, especially in our modern era, because this does deal with Russia, the collapse of the Soviet Union, the real emotional turmoil that caused for the people of Russia, which in so many ways leads to what we face in our modern world today. You know, that so much of our modern world is Russia not being able to deal with the fallout of their history, which, to be fair, has been true of every country that ever had a massive empire. And is very true of the U.S. as well, which, you know, it's all coming to play. And, you know, I think the one advantage the U.S. has is that we actually have been waiting for it. We knew it was coming. We all knew we were idiots, but, you know, at least we chose to be idiots ourselves. And that's why freedom's important. Okay, moving right along. So this story opens up with some great characters who I don't know. We have a redhead named Beth, I believe.
Yeah, remember she was the one driving them from the airport when they ran into the Hulk on the highway?
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's her.
Yeah.
This great blonde with the spiky dude, who's his new pilot.
You know what? I don't know if we ever see her again because I believe maybe a month, 2 months after this arc, they switch writers and everything. I don't know if we ever see this pilot ever again.
Gosh. All I'm saying is, Kevin Feige, this is a role Tig Notaro needs to have. Please call Tig Notaro immediately. Say, there is an obscure Marvel character that we would like to make you the central character for a lot of stories. You get to be a pilot with a spiky blonde hairdo.
And the cowboy boots with the flames on them.
Oh, she's just, at every level, she is awesome. So, honestly, it's all the more disappointing that we never hear from her again.
I know.
Oh, goodness. But yeah, she was amazing. But, so that would be a great thing for future. We get Natasha Romanoff in this. And I don't know, man. There's a part of me that's like, there's some buried leads in this whole thing. And it's weird when she first comes in. There's a coloring error in my Marvel Unlimited where they make her hair white because she's wearing the white hat.
Mm-hmm.
So at first I didn't realize that was Natasha. I thought it was some other person. But then the next panel, she has the red hair. And you go, oh, okay, that's Natasha. And they call her by name. No, man, that's the thing. It's like, because I think later it's revealed that Natasha is married to Boris. She's married to somebody. I know that. No, she was married to the Red Guardian.
Yeah, I think one of the early Red Guardians. Yeah.
So,
I think they were partners because Tony even makes the joke at the end, Boris and Natasha. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we don't get that to the end. And
Yeah.
that's a cheap joke. And actually, it's honestly, the ending of this arc is really, I felt in poor taste. I will say that because just nothing about that makes sense except in a very damaged person's mind. Like if you're a super damaged person, how the story ends makes sense. Because, we're just super damaged. So, yeah, this is how we're going to deal with this real incredible trauma, you know.
Well, it was the 1990s, so.
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad we know better now. That was like, oh, wow. Because that's the thing, is that scene makes sense in the 90s, but we don't, but like the idea after the fact is like, oh, that's why they did that, because they were in extreme emotional pain, and the only way to deal with extreme emotional pain is, self-harm, really. Because how else would you describe what they do? But moving back to the start of this, Tony Stark is off to open up a new Stark Enterprises building facility in Russia.
Yep.
And he's got his team together. He's got Natasha to be his translator. We get Happy Hogan. Happy Hogan's still alive, so that's nice.
Yes.
And
Titanium Man is not happy that the Russian people are forgetting the old ways.
Well, Titanium Man is like, look, I mean, there's so many ways you can express this, and this is what is interesting about a lot of modern thought and deconstruction of things. There was a time where people felt this pride in their structure, especially in the sense of the global conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And within the concept of communism, you have at its core an ideal, much in the same way that you have an ideal in the core of democracy. And of course, it should always be noted that democracy and communism are not actually in any way opposed to each other. Capitalism and communism are opposed to each other. Fascism and democracy are opposed to each other. But the political and the economic systems are completely two different things.
Do you think Titanium Man, he would have had a problem, but it was really a problem because it was Stark?
No, I think he had a problem because of, and to be this is where fascist manipulation comes in. And you can see this in this idea of Mother Russia, which is the idea that the whole thing about fascism, because even as they talk about the glorious workers' paradise, what it's really about is Mother Russia. And how should Mother Russia be treated? How should, as we said in Germany in the 1940s, how should the fatherland be treated? Once you start to paternalize your state, suddenly you have a different, which of course is what George Orwell, that's why George Orwell specifically chose Big Brother. Because it is about making the state your family. So whether it is the fatherland or Mother Russia or good old Uncle Sam, however you want to define your relationship with the state, when you make it familial rather than honestly political, which is what it should be, it leads to that my country right or wrong fascistic perception that feeds itself. And it becomes the Ouroboros that devours itself. And that's many countries in many ways. But it's sad that, unfortunately, Russia, the great socialist experiment, also fell to that fascistic idea, as so many communist countries did, which is, somewhat eternally hurt the idea of democratic socialism as a path forward for humanity. But that's a whole other conversation. But there's a whole reference in this about some other superhero fighting the Chechens, or there's something about the Chechens, because this is during the Chechen revolt. Fun fact, modern scholars actually think that the entire Chechen war was orchestrated by Putin to gain power. Now, I am not a conspiracy theorist, but man, that's a good conspiracy. Especially because it's not about me or my people. So, yeah, but it's always very weird and disturbing, the entire post-Soviet structure. Because it is all about the Soviets saying, hey, you're kind of part of our country. You can't really be your own country. Mm-hmm. Like, no, we were only your country because you held us under, fascistic tank control. And then everyone's like, but no, but we're just one big happy government. And it's like, no, it's a lot harder to break apart. Because to be fair, the Soviet Union was never a democracy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're when they're talking about Chechen, because they're talking about they don't have their other operatives, so that's what, when the Titanium Man comes after Iron Man, Russians are like, oh, we're calling Crimson Dynamo because Titanium Man's gone renegade, and
Yeah, and of course, but then we have we have an interesting reference to the what was it called, the Rote 4, or that Titanium Man and Crimson Dynamo were in like this group that opposed the breakdown of the Soviet Union. Although, again, within this whole structure, there are these same corrupt... In fact, there is this general... the guy who looks like Thunderbolt Ross, who is clearly the older general who doesn't care about anyone else but his own power and structure and movement forward. So, it's disturbing. But anyway, so Tony gets to the big ribbon cutting, and Titanium Man shows up after he's cried over the corpse of Lenin, because no one even comes to see Lenin anymore. The
line used to be down the block. Now no one comes.
Well, it helped when people would shoot you if you didn't line up. That's the thing. It's like, but at the same time, and this is the real truth of it, is with the collapse of the Soviet Union, there were real economic and sociological problems, mm-hmm. including this embrace of gangsterism. The loss of pensions for people that had relied on those. If you just say the system's done and walk away, especially if you walk away, that is problematic. If you walk away with all the money, that is problematic. And, this is what so much of the fall of the Soviet Union was. Meanwhile, so Titanium Man comes to attack Iron Man, and he comes to attack Tony Stark, because of course no one knows who Iron Man is. Yep. He's a mystery wrapped in an enigma. But we also have in this that Boris has undergone He has been operated on. He's been roided up. He can't get out of the armor.
Nope.
The armor is the only thing keeping him alive, which is, in its own way, pretty sad. But he endured it because he endured it for his country. He is in his own way, boxer from Animal Farm. He is the one who will work harder for the cause. He knows the cause needs people to just work and work and work. And he will work, and that is fine by him because he is the Titanium Man. But at the same time, there are negativities to that. So they fight and fight and fight and fight and fight and fight and fight. Black Widow joins in the fight, which is nice. Oh, you know what? Should we do the B plot from the very start of this book? Because I realized we completely glossed over the B plot.
I mean, we can. It doesn't really pay off until the issue after this, but
it's the issue after this. But so Tony realizes that one of his mentors has actually pretty severe dementia.
Yeah.
It's rough that he's like just diagnosing it so haphazardly, and really dealing with absolutely no bedside manner or conduciveness. Like get a Doc Samson in there to really discuss the diagnosis.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many more gentle ways you could handle that, but he didn't. But the guy who's dealing with the liquid metal that responds to energy. Yeah. That's the B plot. That's sprinkled out throughout this, and we get it after all this. And I imagine that those guys that comes up later in story, and part of me kind of imagines that that's sort of the start of that whole symbiotic liquid metal armor that the Superior Iron Man used. So, anyway, long story short, back to this story. They send in the Crimson Dynamo, who comes in the next issue, because of course, at the start of this, they get in their fight, and it ends with, and now I, Crimson Dynamo, will rip, the capitalist Iron Man limb from limb, because that's how you end a book, because that's how you get into the next one. And in the next one, of course, Black Widow joins in.
Yep.
And is trying to reason with Boris, with the Titanium Man. And there is so much of their relationship that is going unspoken in this moment that is kind of hurtful. And to be fair, I get the feeling that there's a quality that in the third book of this you would not get today, because the obvious answer is to put Natasha in the Crimson Dynamo armor. Like, that's what you would do if you were writing the story today, because she has a clear connection. She can talk with him. She can certainly fight her way out of anything, and she can deal with the armor. She would be able to work with it. But in that moment, in between, we get the big fight, and we get the idea that, the person who is in the current Crimson Dynamo armor, they have sacrificed a lot, they've done a lot, they understand the importance of the armor and how to utilize it, and they are ready to come up and make the stand against against the Titanium Man, and to make the logical argument. I mean, that's what I like about these three issues the best, is a lot of it hinges on a logical argument about what are we really building towards. And I know what you're saying, but I think that battle is lost. If the people reject us, how can we say we are the people's champions?
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the deepest quality of it. It's like, if we can't say we are the people's champions, how are we heroes? But anyway, so in that moment, the Titanium Man eventually flies away, as you do, because he doesn't want to hurt all the people that he's hurting. And in that moment, Crimson Dynamo has broken his leg within his armor. So what do we do next, Phil?
Well, they're like, well, you can't just have Iron Man defeat Titanium Man. It has to. It should look like a Russian. So Tony Stark dons Crimson Dynamo's armor.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. He wears the armor and he goes to battle. The only thing is, when they get to it, and again, you even get this moment that I'm saying, like, it should have been Natasha in the Crimson Dynamo armor.
I know. The only excuse I can, the weak, flimsy excuse I can give it is just, operating armor is more second nature than Tony.
Yeah, I guess, but it's all, and it is Iron Man's book. I mean, that's the thing. It's like,
and it's his name on the cover, yeah.
Yeah, you can't have Iron Man just be like, well, okay, so, but actually it would have been smarter had, because really Natasha does nothing in this, which I think feeds in, and that's the thing about it. It's like one of these things. So this is the thing about books that were old books, because this is the 90s, kids. People listening to this right now might not have been born when this book came out. This is like when I would watch those old Three Stooges sketches when I was a child. It's like, oh, goodness, people enjoyed this. Wonderful. Yeah, so there is a reality here that within the structure of the book, we are looking at something that we can see from our modern perspective and see a story that was written, either that wasn't intended to be written, or maybe absolutely was intended to be written, but could not be explicit. And that's the thing here, because in the story we get, we have Tony Stark as the person in the armor. We have the other guy whose name escapes me, the guy who has earned the Crimson Dynamo armor, as they say, doing the voice. And Natasha really feeling put to the side.
Yeah, although she does try to talk him down towards the end, because that's where...
Oh, yeah, no, she takes the mic eventually.
Yeah.
She grabs the mic, and she really tries to talk him down, because this is...
Because that's where she explains she trained this guy and later requested him as her partner.
Yeah. Yeah. Moving right along, Justin was asking who would win Crimson Dynamo or Ironmonger. There's so many differences in all of those, but I would say Crimson Dynamo because he would be the hero of his book. You're not going to put Crimson Dynamo against Ironmonger unless you're going to put a heroic Ironmonger into his book. Crimson Dynamo, by his nature, is heroic, at least from his perspective.
No, I meant more like, those death battles?
Well, I know death battles, but those are all made up, Tristan. You do know that, right?
They're not real like comic books.
No, but they are real like comic books, meaning that they're made up.
Yeah.
They look at, well, what did they do in the comic? They said they did this in the comic, so that's our basis point. That's why Popeye can defeat pretty much anyone, because Fleischer Physics says, you know what? He can punch you into your composite parts, He can punch a tiger into a bunch of kittens. And that is he can solve the question of what would you rather face, one tiger or 100 angry kittens? And Popeye solves the question, because he would punch the tiger. They then become 100 angry kittens, and he is not swarmed because he is Popeye. So, also kittens are easily distracted by, cream and belly rubs and the like. Moving right along. But yeah, so she grabs the mic and she's trying to talk down Boris. And Boris isn't having it. Boris has had a lot of bad days. And that's really what you can really take away from this. This is the thing. This is the thing I think most people forget. Because even in the One Bad Day comic concept of, The Dark Knight. What was that? What book was it that Alan Moore wrote with the One Bad Day?
Oh, The Killing Joke?
The Killing Joke. It's like, it wasn't one bad day. It was actually, seems like a lifetime of bad days. Mm-hmm. It just, this was just the one. This was just the straw that broke the family.
Oh yeah, I mean, you see this in real life all the time. It's like, the Titanium Man believed in this system, believed that his country and everything, and then all of a sudden the whole thing was just ripped out from under him. Yeah,
well, exactly, and that's the idea. It's like it's not just one bad day. It's a lifetime of bad days, because it was realizing that you probably served a corrupt system, even though you believed it was
He believed
correct.
it, and all of a sudden, even his leaders are like, no, we're going to try a different way. No, everything you believe, nah, we're not going to do that no more.
Well, exactly, and to me, that is the terror of it.
Oh yeah,
it's just this idea that I dedicated my life to this, and now you're going to tell me this is not in any way real. That I have not been. I've been sacrificing myself for all these years for an ideal of the glorious workers' paradise, and you will say, nah, it's not working anymore. We'll keep the fascism, but, F glorious workers. And that is, I think, the horror that Titanium Man is dealing with. The cruel and in its only even more evil compromise that Crimson Dynamo is making. And at the same time, the thing that Tony Stark, as always, is oblivious to, and that Natasha is just dealing with because she is, in her own way, the eternal outsider of all things. So, it's rough, man. It's rough. Crimson Dynamo does the whole Unibeam blast, but apparently the Russian Unibeam blast is way more than a typical Iron Man Unibeam blast, because this thing...
Well, there was some kind of rocket behind them, too, so I don't know if it was like a nuke or... It was something, because I think Tony said it was almost like a nuclear detonation, because they hit something with it.
Yeah, and then... and poor old Boris, you see his beard under the mask, you see he's just trying so hard to live, but he can't live without the machines anymore, because he's been so beat into it, and that's the sad part about it, man.
Yeah, but then
Boris is the tragic hero of the whole story.
Yeah, then Tony's all mad at Crimson Dynamo because he's like, you used me to, kill this guy.
Yeah, but at the same time, really, you were there to do what you were there to do. You took on the armor because you said you wanted to, and you wanted me to be in control of it. And to say that, I didn't mean for that to happen, well, it's like, well, what did you mean to happen?
Well, I guess Tony, I guess Tony thought they were going to just beat him down and throw him in the gulag or whatever.
Well, oh boy, that's a better outcome, isn't it, Mr. Stark?
Well, he'd be alive. I don't know. Or maybe he thought they could talk him down. I don't know.
Well, everyone thought they could talk him down, but as it turns out, they couldn't. And this goes into when the Crimson Dynamo is getting dressed down by, the Thunderbolt Ross version, the Russian Thunderbolt Ross. I wish I knew the Thunderbolt Risky, I guess, is the way we're going to say it. The guy who is just clearly the elder general who is trying to preserve his status.
Well, plausible deniability. They're blaming the whole thing on Crimson Dynamo. Then they're taking the armor from him. He's like, I killed this guy who was my friend once upon a time. I've done all this dirt, all their dirty work, and they're just hanging me out to dry.
Yeah. Oh man, I gotta say, there was a great scene in this where we get a call from ForceWorks.
Oh yeah, the Black Widow. Yeah.
Well, no,
or Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch. I mean, yeah.
I did not and that's like low cut dress Scarlet Witch.
Oh yeah.
This is 90s Scarlet Witch. You got which also just opens up this weird thing to me. It's like, man, is there like a backstory with Scarlet Witch and Walker? Like, I would absolutely love to see the John Walker Scarlet Witch story play out in that Thunderbolts thing they're doing. Because it's clear they have a relation. I mean, they don't have a relationship, but it's clear. It's like, oh wow, I never realized the Scarlet Witch and U.S. Agent were on the same team.
Oh yeah. I mean, starting in towards the end of Avengers West Coast, and then into the Force Works, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, to me that opens up so many stories. To me, that's what's interesting about reading these old stories. It's like nowadays you can look at this and say, oh my goodness, there are so many stories you could tell here.
Oh yeah.
There's so many stories that were not told. so many traumas that were not addressed that a new writer could address, and then new avenues to take with the story. So, like, if you look at something like the Thunderbolts, and you look at a character like John Walker, and you say, what would a John Walker and a Wanda Maximoff story look like in the modern MCU? And it's like, wow, there's a lot to be told here. Black Widow dresses up in her old costume after they just killed her friend Boris. Tony makes a big joke about the fact that, oh, you were the Russian spies, you were Boris and Natasha, ha ha ha. Which I'm not even sure would have been a meme at the time, because I gotta think that the actual Boris and Natasha from Bullwinkle premiered about the same time as Boris and Natasha in the comics, and they were just two common Russian names.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a real cruel... To me, it's an insanely cruel thing for Tony to mention to someone who's clearly going through some stuff.
Well, like you said, I mean, they're both probably going through trauma. I mean, basically, Tony was forced to be the guy's executioner.
I know. But then, for her to do this, honestly, the whole thing, I mean, there is someone called Doc Samson. We need a professional... actually, who's a good psychiatrist? Man, are there any good psychiatrists in the Marvel Universe? You're thinking, like, well, because Sofin is not good, Samson is not good. Even whoever, like, Peter talked to at some point, Spider-Man talked to at some point. I think she's even gone evil at this point. Or at least she's dead.
Oh, Dr. Kafka, yeah. Charlie, if we had good psychiatric care in the Marvel Universe, we wouldn't have as many characters in the Marvel Universe running around in masks.
That is probably a good point. You know, as Super Chicken once said, if I had supervision, do you think I'd be running around in this ridiculous outfit? Because, I mean, that's the truth of it. It's like, if anyone was taking care of the mental health of these people, probably there would be a much better world.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, there is a history where Kal-El's capsule falls in Vienna, and he gets raised by psychiatrists who try to understand. He becomes the super psychiatrist, and he just flies around and heals everyone's trauma on the planet. And that is a universe I want to live in. I sensed you had trauma. Let's talk about that.
Do you think he'd be a good help to get villains on the right track?
I think he would be very good to get villains on the right track. As we've seen throughout the Marvel history, at least, most villains just want to get on the right track. They've dealt with a lot of stuff over the years, and they just want to get better. Hey, Phil, you want to talk about some books that came out recently?
Yes. Yeah, let's talk some new books.
Okay. Do you want to talk Iron Man, since we just talked Iron Man?
Yeah.
We talked the most recent Iron Man?
Yeah, we got a new Iron Man #1,
We got a new Iron Man. Speaking of distance from moral consequences, there's a quality to Iron Man as... So we're going to do... Iron Man is, I guess, a little broke?
Well, he spent most of his fortune at the end of the last series, like buying up all those dangerous weapons and stuff. And
yeah, which was... So, and honestly, like, part of me is thinking we're going to do that Peggy Carter story where it's like, oh yeah, it's all the dangerous weapons, but a bunch of them got stolen. But, that was with a Howard Stark story where he built the weapons that got stolen. But this is just him. Although he says he has Stiltman's legs in there. So it's like, really, Tony, how dangerous are any of these things?
Exactly.
You know, is this just one more ego trip for you? But we get that he is being attacked because we see that effectively what the starting point is he is in New York in his brownstone. He's dictating his memoirs, and he's doing an experiment, in the brownstone in a residential area.
Well, yeah, he's always working on his last suit of armor, but I guess the whole thing's his whole lab's powered by an arc reactor, which somebody seems to sabotage because it blows up.
Yeah. There's an interesting legal technical question here, because one could argue the same of the Baxter building, but the Baxter building was actually in the financial district, so it wasn't a residential district.
Ah.
So where the Baxter building was with the high rises, it's unlikely that in a 2-block radius that anyone lived there, but millions of people obviously worked there. So
yeah,
so that could have been just as much of a trouble during normal business hours.
I wonder if people looked the other way because he was like, "Hey guys, hey all his neighbors, hey, let me put in this arc reactor in the basement. Nobody in this building has to pay for electricity." Okay.
Well, I'm sure there was a lot of things that everyone understood.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, I think, She-Hulk's point in this episode, where she's like, a lot of these people are just looking to take your money. It's like, I don't want to fight anything.
Yeah.
And it's sort of which is sort of that I'm so rich I don't care anymore perspective, which is not a good perspective, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
From any person on the planet. It's like, if you are, it's not a good perspective of anyone on the planet if you're sitting there and saying, oh, just write a check. It's like, well, I don't know if that's always the best thing. But we do see that he does fight the Messenger, which is in itself a pun. Philip, we have a punster.
Don't shoot him.
Don't kill the Messenger. Yes. Who is just a dude who was a landlord, I think they said.
Well, again, whoever's behind this strapped some guy into this armor and was like basically driving around against his will. So
yeah, but it's interesting because they do refer to Tony specifically as a capitalist. Oh, it's Antifa, Phil. Antifa now has weaponized armor. Oh no! Gods. And to be fair, I can't say that is a far-flung story in the cosmology of superhumanity, but it is also a little like, really? I don't, that's the thing. I don't think kids in the basement built this, although, I guess, and we see that so much of this is about destroying Tony Stark's reputation, because we do see that he winds up in an alley throwing up after he leaves an AA meeting. He says he doesn't know where he went.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think he went to a bar, or do you think he just is being infected by nanobots?
I think he went to the bar, but I think someone may be driving him. There may have been a little clue to the mastermind maybe in this, because in the beginning when he's going through like his little when he's doing his biography and stuff, and when he talks about the house in Malibu that was destroyed by Berserker 7. I remember that another 90s story, and guess who the Berserker 7's boss was? Or
who was Berserker 7's boss?
The Controller.
Oh, the Controller. Didn't we just do a story with him?
Did we?
Yeah, he was part of what's his name's crew. The guy who was the robot from the future.
Wait, what?
What's his name? The guy who tried to gain the powers of the Silver Surfer. Because I keep on thinking of the computer that War Tennis used.
Korvac.
Korvac, yeah.
Yeah.
Korvac came back. One of his dudes was the Controller.
Yeah.
See, Phil, I read the comics.
Yeah. So yeah, from the last Iron Man writer. Yeah. So I mean, and again, if Tony's walking into a bar and doesn't remember doing it, maybe the controllers do it.
And we've already seen this guy's. Ironically, the Controller is really open to control.
And like you said, I mean, he used to has to put like a disc on your neck or something. Now he's probably just like, I just inject you with some nanobots or something,
Yeah, nanobots. See, the future is nanobots, though. Yeah. That's one thing I think we can all say. Speaking of the future being nanobots, did you read Savage Avengers 2099?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and man, So, okay, first off, this always gets me confused about Doom 2099. Because I distinctly remember Doom 2099 being just a dude put in the...
Yeah, just a guy who thought he was Victor Von Doom, yeah.
But now they're like, it almost seems like, I am... It's confusing,
yeah, but
to say the least.
But it's like every couple of years when we come back to 2099, it's always like a different version of 2099.
Yeah.
Like originally, remember, Ultron never took over, so...
Yeah, that is true, too. But I love and hate so much of it. This is so much an Empire Strikes Back book. Because it is so much about, starting off so triumphantly and then just having it end so horribly.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you open up and we get this little introduction to what happened in 2091, a mere 8 years ago, which is what actually led to the big Doombot Ultron War. Although, can I just take a moment to say, isn't it weird that Ultron is like, I'm the greatest thing, I can take over any robot, but what are all the Doombots you had to fight? You couldn't take over any of those Doombots? They're literally just Doombots, dude. Reed Richards just reprogrammed 6 of them in the last issue of his book.
Could Doom have some kind of mystical safeguards on those?
That is what bugs me about this issue. I don't want to say bugs me, but like, oh, I see what you did there. I see what you did there. And that comes into we get our heroes. They crash. Doom has to get out. And again, that's one of those things where it's like, wait, which Doom is this? Because where is the Doom time gauntlet held, Philip?
Oh, and what was that?
The Tomb of Tiger Wilde.
Yes, his old enemy, yeah.
Well, but Tiger Wilde was the guy who put some schlub into the machine, into the Christopher machine, right? Yeah. To make you think you were Dr. Doom. And although cool beans about that it makes you as smart as Dr. Doom. So even if you were just a schlub, you're now a super genius, which is kind of cool when you think about it. But they get into the fight, because of course, as it turned out, but that's also what's weird about it is like, Ultron has been waiting and has been bugging Doom's armor and went to the tomb of Tiger Wilde first. There's so many things that like, I don't think Ultron is as powerful as Ultron says he is in this. Maybe I'm the fool for underestimating a Marvel villain, but I get the feeling he's mostly bluster Phil.
Yeah.
But they do manage to basically defeat all of the Avengers. We get, after Cloak dies and Venom and Anti-Venom dies, we get a dagger infused with the Anti-Venom light parasite. Honestly becoming arguably too much for Ultron to deal with, so Ultron hits her with the microwave beam, which I don't even know if that does it. And then we have the magical blade come at him. And I get why this didn't feel, because of course the statement is that it has a bloodless, but robots don't have blood, sucker. But at the same time we see the Ultron has recreated the Savage Avengers in his own image to go and do a big fight next scene. Because, of course, what's his name?
Well, Punisher. Yeah.
Yeah, Jake Gallows and Miles Morales have escaped. Oh, I did like that they gave Miles Morales
the web shooters.
The web shooters back,
yeah.
So that was cool. Did you read Photon?
Of course I did, yes.
I liked Photon a lot. It's a good establishing story. I'm not sure how I feel about Dr. Fold here, because I don't know. It's a lot. Here's what I'll say. It's a really good book. if you just want some slice of life and to set up the next story. You get a lot of background, a lot of stuff that's interesting. It's a little weird when she talks about her being afraid of the water and how it's ironic, but doesn't mention that she was in the Coast Guard.
I thought she did. I thought she said that was ironic because she.
Well, she mentions it's ironic, but she doesn't mention that she was in the Coast Guard. She mentions that she grew up in New Orleans.
Yeah, okay.
She also doesn't mention that it was hitting the ocean, and to me, that makes it more sense.
Yeah.
That's what actually sapped her powers, was hitting salt water after she became pure light or something.
Well, I think she was kind of like electrical. Yeah. And again, Thor was throwing lightning around too. So.
Yeah. Anyway, either way, it all breaks down as it does. We have a nice endorsement of bacon, egg, and cheese, which I don't think is in any way a New Jersey or New York staple. But so you get bacon, egg, and cheese in a roll anywhere in the country. But it is nice when you go to a little griddle. The little griddles are always the best. We meet the old lady who, that's Captain Marvel. That's my Captain Marvel. That's what I always say, too, quite frankly. So that's nice. We got our nostalgia. She returns an object to Doctor Strange, who has been bested by Wong in chess, which again makes us say, why isn't Wong Sorcerer Supreme yet? Anyway, but they come... There's a big boom, and this is what bothers me, is that the big boom and a big person doesn't start the fight. It's like Photon starts the fight. And that's bothersome to me, because it's like, have we learned nothing from Squirrel Girl? When you see a giant person just showing up, don't assume they're the villain. Have you been on this planet for more than 2 weeks?
Yeah.
By the end of the fight, Spider-Man shows up. They all fight. They eventually realize that the folding person is Dr. Yesenia Rosario, one of the most brilliant scientists. He met Dr. Rosario in Marvel Team Up 2019, #1.
Yes, because in that story, she created a device which later on was accidentally used to swap Peter Parker and Kamala Khan's brains.
People love to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Brain swapping is fun. But after all that, Monica. So she says, Monica's gonna destroy the world, and she wants to stop. But of course, at the same time, it's like, well, wait, shouldn't we consider this?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know that this person is a super genius. They clearly have developed super spatial powers. Maybe we should discuss what's going on here. And everyone's like, nah, man, I got a thing later. Just everyone go home and we'll deal with that as it does. And Monica goes home, talks to her parent, talks to her father, talks to her mom. Her cousin Caleb is having a bad day. Abusive paramour, abusive boyfriend, as it were, and she just goes off to be light in the universe, which is fun. But I'm interested to see where it goes. I am interested to see where it goes, and it did a good establishing. Basically this is an establishing issue. And it lets you know what's out there. It doesn't give you necessarily what's going on, but gives you a nice little tantalizer. I just think that probably a lot of people would have maybe said, maybe we should take this a little more seriously, given our line of work.
Did you see the blurb for next issue?
What is the blurb for next year?
Right.
I saw that it's got like her and Black Knight. And
well, yeah, it looks like the 80s Avengers, but it says, have you ever had one of those days where everything is going wrong, like you're somehow sucked across the infinite cosmos into the wrong corner of fragmented space-time, and you run into someone from your past you really can't stand, like, say, someone from ... beyond?
Oh, that dude. I love that guy. He is coming back in Avengers Beyond.
Uh-huh.
It's like, you will not forget me. The legacy of Shooter is eternal.
I wonder if this book's going to be like a prequel to Avengers Beyond or something. Yeah.
I hope so. Well, considering that I'm sure Defenders Beyond was.
Yeah.
And because they really established a nice bit with the Beyonders, especially in the sense that Loki, as the god of stories, has power over everyone because he can suck you into a narrative, which is so much that great idea that Futurama had with the brains being sucked into stories,
Mm-hmm.
where if you get into the story, you could get lost in it, and that's where the wackiness ensues, Phil. Phil, where else can wackiness ensue? How can people give us their sense of wackiness?
Oh, if you want to send us your thoughts or any questions or suggestions, email us, CapesandLunatics@gmail.com, or call the voicemail 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And remember, you can find us on Facebook, on Twitter. The Capes and Lunatics are on Hive now. Find links to all the various social medias for all the shows we do. Link to the YouTube channel. Everything we do gets a video, so please smash that subscribe button, because we're getting close. I think, what are we at, 261 subscribers or something? So, Lilith Hellfire demands you give us at least 8 more. So, yeah, smash that subscribe button. And, of course, the Patreon, most importantly. Once again, we're paying for this ourselves out of our own pocket. Every little bit helps, but $3 to $5 gets you early access to creator interviews, including the monthly Chichester chats.
I got the good mic out for you guys.
And superhero movie brackets are over, but you can listen to the whole thing now when you become a patron. And coming in 2023, more surprises, and the patrons get to suggest stuff for us to talk about. So, yes, subscribe now and get all that power. And pick yourself up some Capes and Lunatics and Capes and Lunatics Sidekicks merch. Find it all at Linktree, linktr.ee/Capes and Lunatics. And now, where can you find the knowledge of a Charlie Esser?
Well, you can always write to me that old-fashioned email way, the way our mothers and fathers once did. At superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. Of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet things when I feel like it. At Charlie Esser, but CHARLIE. Yes, SER. Look for the 2 E's in the middle.
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Maz. Dear listeners, you have listened once again to a declassified episode of the Avengers Declassified. But that means that the information you have received was at once classified. And this is dangerous material, so be aware that this podcast will self-destruct eventually.
Good night.
Hi, I'm one of the High Priests of Khonshu Ray, and I have the sacred privilege of providing you, the loony listener, with a podcast honouring Marvel's very own Moon Knight. So join me and a host of others at Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, or support the show by becoming a Patreon member. Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. It's time to get your Khonshu on.